Hello and welcome back to Modular Modcast. My name is Tim Held. This week we have a great show for you. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the Modular on the Spot Portland, all the footage and the audio all synced and edited in time for this week's release. Luckily, I met a new awesome artist at Modular on the Spot, Kira, aka Cave Cricket, and after a performance, I got her album. And after listening to her album and seeing the performance, I was like, gotta get Kira on the show. So that's who's on the show today. And I'm gonna play a little bit of her set that I threw together, but we'll see more of it next week. And I will use a separate part of it, so you're not getting repeat stuff. What else is there to talk about? Well, first things first, I want to remind everybody that there is now a Modular Modcast website, complete with a sweet store. Saw this last week, but I did add some new products. I added this cool 3/4 sleeve, like baseball style shirt in multiple colors. Super cool. What else did I add? I added this sweet tote bag. Also, you have some color options for the straps. Also got 2 different journals with a PodMod logo on the cover, some stickers, a set of buttons, another sticker, a drawstring bag. I've been kind of a drawstring bag. That's hard to say. I've been a bit of a drawstring bag boy this summer. Got orange and white there. A mouse pad, which I'm gonna get because I need a mouse pad. So yeah, if you are interested in any of that, modularmodcast.com. Link in the show description. I also had a lot of fun last week going through the used and vintage section on the Patchworks website. So let's see if there's anything new added that we didn't see last week. Oh, there's a 4MS ensemble oscillator. That's $250. That's a good deal. I would jump all over that if you were looking for a really cool oscillator. Looks like that Octopad's still there, so if you were eyeing that, you could. Ooh, an MPC-1 for $500. That's pretty good. Oh, leaves, Mystic Circuit leaves. You can use that with the Benjamin V2 or any Turing machine or the Mystic Circuits tree. I have both of those. I really like them. Oh, the Roland AX1 is still there. I so want to play a show with a guitar someday. That would be so fun. Cool. Yeah, looks like a couple new things, couple cool things. Like I said just a few minutes ago and last week, I really would like to get an Octopad, but I can't justify that. I've got a drum set. I've got too much stuff. So let me live vicariously through you, and somebody get this and tell me that you got it, and then let me tell you. I'd also like to say thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon. If you would like to help keep the LEDs blinking over here at PodMod, head over to patreon.com/modularmodcast. Doing a giveaway here pretty soon. I made some more of my home mixtapes where I just dub a couple of my albums onto a 90-minute mixtape. So I'm going to throw those into the mix. And if you don't feel like signing up for a monthly thing, you can always head over to the store and get some merch. modularmodcast.com/store. All right, we are going to get into this chat shortly, but first I just wanted to take you on a little tour of Fiber Being, which is Kira's store on Etsy, where we're going to talk a little bit about this during the conversation. But she makes some really, really cool plant hangers and necklaces and earrings with different types of textiles. And don't tell my wife Hannah, because I don't think she'll watch this episode before our anniversary, but I got her this plant hanger as an anniversary gift. I think that's pretty cool. I like that it's dyed at the bottom and then not at the top. It's got a cool fading black kind of look to it. And then I also got her this yellow plant hanger because it's super cool looking. And they're very well priced, super affordable. So if you want to support a cool artist and you need to hang some plants up, or you need some earrings or a necklace or a tarot card bag even, head over to Fiber Being. Link in the show description. All right, I'm gonna play a piece of Cave Cricket's set from Modular on the spot, and then in the middle of the show, I'm just gonna give you a little snippet of part of my set too, because it was fun to do, and I'd like to share it with you. But Patreon subscribers, you can see my full set on Patreon right now, if you would like to. All right, let's get into Kira's performance, and then a chat. every time I start talking to the guest before I hit record, we always end up in territory. I'm like, okay, wait. We're going to start this
Yeah, you
conversation
wish,
over.
yeah, you wish you had been recording. Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kira, it's pronounced Kira, correct?
Yeah, Kira. Yeah.
Okay. I have a cousin, Kyra. So I just wanted to make sure because I'm pretty sure my
Nice.
cousin spells it the same way.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah. So I am. I am positive that I have seen you. We have bumped into each other at synth events in Portland or Seattle at some point because when I saw you at Mott's last weekend, you looked really familiar. But I don't. I'm pretty sure I know I've never seen you play because I would have remembered it. I don't like to do. I don't. I mean, favorite's a weird word and doesn't really mean much. And I don't want to disparage anyone else, but I think I might have enjoyed your set the most. Um, or I don't know. I think it was also, I'm really glad that you performed after the sun had gone down with the string lights around you and, with the omnichord and the rain stick. And I also wanted to apologize if me filming the whole thing and putting a light in your face was annoying. Um,
No, not at all. It actually
okay.
was a little helpful.
I was
I
wondering
guess
about that. I was kind of hoping that was the case.
nobody anticipated it getting that dark, and I think
hmm
we're all, still feeling our way into early fall and
Totally.
earlier sundown, and yeah, um, yeah, we definitely have met before. I work at 4MS company, so which you probably knew that, but yeah, we were probably in a few similar kind of uh, spaces because of that.
hmm
And
Yeah.
yeah, I also help run the Instagram, so I'm
You
reposting the pod
you've
mod.
seen me. Yeah, you've seen me tag you like a million times then. Um, well, I don't wanna get too I usually like to start, with a get to know you, so I wanna put a pin in the 4MS thing for right now, but
Yeah, totally.
I wanna start with the basics. Where'd you grow up? Yeah, where'd you grow
Yeah,
up?
totally. I grew up in a small town called West Harrison that is in Westchester County, which is in New York. And
Okay.
it's like the county that's right above New York City. So it
Oh,
borders the Bronx borough.
okay.
And then when I was 18, I moved to New York City and I lived in the Bronx for about 8 years.
Okay.
And
Is Middletown in that region where you were from? Does that sound familiar?
um, it doesn't ring a bell, but New York is pretty vast and big.
Right. Well, my
So,
wife's family is from like just north of like the city,
oh,
but not
cool.
like super far north. And I think it was called Middletown. But
Maybe
anyways,
somewhere up the Hudson Valley that I just haven't been. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, cool. And so did you go to New York to pursue music and or academia or?
Yeah, I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology and I have a BFA in textile surface design and a minor in art history. And um, so while I was pursuing that, I also was starting cave cricket. I started cave cricket in 2011 and I was living in punk houses and having shows in the basement. And that was really my whole world was like being a part of DIY scenes and, being very into booking shows, hosting touring bands, going on tour myself. And I was very close with a band called No One and the Somebodies and another band called Old Table. And there just were like, we had our own little scene that
Nice.
people would come on out to the Bronx. They would get on the subway for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and come
Uh-huh.
out to our houses. And it was a really special time in my life, and I feel like I learned a lot about being a musician and yeah, just like the people I was with, it was really very special.
That's so
And
cool.
yeah, learned a lot about like recording, touring, and just like the toil that comes from like
Hmm.
being, a DIY musician and
Hmm.
everything that comes with that. Yeah.
I love that you use the word toil because I was staying with David Lutz, Lousy Falcon, who was on the bill with us,
Mm.
his cousin in Milwaukee, just south of Portland for those listening. And really cool dude. And he had this sticker on his toolbox that said "Toil is stupid," and I just thought that was really funny.
That is funny.
uh, all right, so I don't want to jump to Portland quite yet because I want to go back to pre New York City. Um, so textiles, fashion, music, did those like was one first, or when did they both start? I guess is my question.
Yeah, totally. Well, I always like to think about how my mom is an artist, my dad was a musician, so I really like inherited these two beautiful things from my parents. And I started getting interested in music when I was pretty young. My dad had been playing guitar since he was like 5 years old, so
Oh
there were
wow.
always music playing in the house, instruments around, and he tried to get me to play guitar, and it was too hard for my little fingers.
Yeah, yeah.
Got piano lessons, but then I eventually settled on percussion as being my shit. And
Okay.
I remember I tried out for the percussion section when I was like in elementary school to be in the orchestra and got in, and it was just like a public elementary school, but so many people wanted to play the drums that they had to have tryouts.
Oh wow,
And I
yeah.
remember them, it was literally just like go up to the snare drum and try and do a drum roll in front
Uh-huh.
of like a room full of people. And I consider myself like kind of a shy, introverted adult, but I was like even worse as a kid. And I remember getting
Hmm.
up there and being like, okay, fuck, here we go. And yeah, and so that was kind of my intro to music. And then I played percussion all the way through high school.
Oh
And
cool.
once I got into high school, I was in the marching band and on the drum line, and I played a marching bass drum for
Oh
4
cool.
years, and it was super fun. And I feel like that influenced me in certain ways in, making music later on as an
Hmm.
adult, which is interesting. But yeah, so that's kind of like where I got started with music. And I had taken a lot of art classes as a kid. I always knew I was going to go to art school. I mean, I thought I was going to be a photographer for a long time.
Hmm.
And then ultimately, I think I decided, yeah, I wanted to try to do textile and surface design because I love
Nice.
drawing and painting. And so FIT is a school I went to, and um, at some point while I was there, I started getting really into politics, and I think Occupy Wall Street started happening, and I
Okay.
was leaving class and going down to the park and becoming a part of that movement. And it really opened my eyes a lot to just capitalism and, this fucked up system that we're all a part of. And that really started influencing my music and certain themes, writing about poetry and lyrically. And so when I graduated, I tried to get some jobs in the city, and um, just was having a really bad time trying to be like a part of the global machine that is like fashion or textiles or any of that. um, I had some good experiences but had some really bad ones, and then
Hmm.
started working for my friend which was amazing. And she has a wallpaper design company
Oh, cool.
called Miranda Wallpaper. And yeah, we still work together. I do some freelance work for her. She's in New Jersey, but yeah, I've always kind of had these two parts of me, and sometimes I feel just way too fucking busy
I
because
know
I
that
have my own
feeling.
business.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
hard when you have so many hobbies and
Hmm.
you're excited about so many things.
I
Yeah,
feel like you
but
and I have a lot of crossover just from what you just said and then how you ended it. Like music was always my thing. But I didn't grow up with artist parents. I grew up with, blue collar working class, everyone in my family in the town I grew up in.
mm.
So yeah, I went to college because, I thought I had to be responsible and yeah, did the academia thing for 7 years and just burnt myself out. And then
Were you
also
studying music or?
no, unfortunately
Mm.
not. I kind of wish I could go back and redo it, but I studied anthropology, specifically primate behavior and evolution. Um,
Oh, wow.
so like a lot of digging in deserts and you know collecting specimens to bring back to Michigan for the cold winter to sit in the lab and pick through and measure and all that. um, but also, you and I are both kind of we have taken our professional life and our passionate life and we have made a slurry of the two. It seems. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know you super well, but just based off the fact that you're working with 4MS and you have your own business with some really cool stuff, which I ordered for my wife for an anniversary present. I got her some plant hangers and pretty stoked about that. And I
Yes,
can only
thank you.
say that
That's so sweet of
because,
you.
yeah, it was, well, I saw that you had another, because, every time like I heard your set and then halfway through your set, I was like, okay, I have to ask Kira to be on the show. Um, and then, so I like to do a little research and, see where the albums and all that. And I saw that and all of that was just like, yeah, I'll have to send you some pictures of the house and yard because my wife is a horticulturalist. She works at the Pacific Science
Yes.
Center in Seattle. She's the horticultural manager of the whole place and specifically the plants in the tropical butterfly house. So
Oh,
all
wow.
that is, yeah, it's a pretty cool job. And all
That's
that is to say, we
amazing.
have a lot of plants here. Um,
Yes.
it's
You can
so
never
cool.
have too many plants. That's my
Yeah.
motto.
Right? Yeah. There's a hat behind me that says plants on it. I don't know if you can see that, but I bought
Nice.
that for her for her birthday and it was just too big for her. So I was like, I guess I got a new cool hat. Um, I was wondering if you had ever thought about or do you think it influenced your trying out and getting the role as as percussionist in when you were younger, if just having so much music in your life from birth, I imagine, and in your home even before you were in school, like do you feel like that instilled a sense of rhythm that maybe a lot of kids wouldn't have had at that young of an age?
Yeah, I think so. Um, I also have an uncle who uh, was a drummer, and he would sit me down in front of his drum set, and I remember playing on it, and he was definitely into like a lot of those like 80s rock bands and
Uh-huh.
hair bands and things like that. So he had, I don't know if he had two bass drums, but he definitely had like a ton of rack toms and cymbals and
Uh-huh.
things, and just like trying to encourage me to play on it. And I remember being like really shy and kind of, okay, here we go,
Uh-huh.
like. But yeah, I feel really just fortunate that my parents had good taste in music as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Um,
Well, I did. Yeah. So I've actually, there's another thing where we overlap, but my uncle Jay was just like my idol all through my childhood, and he would come over and bring his guitar. He played drums and guitar and can sing really well, and I
nice.
just when I saw him doing that, not only like did I want to participate because it looked like so much fun. I also just saw how much everybody loved it when he would they'd have to badger him into doing it. And, I think the young me seeking attention was like, that's a great way to do that. That's really funny.
Totally. Yeah.
Um, oh, there was another thing I wanted to ask. What was it about? Maybe it was about drumming or something. I don't remember. Did you ever like play kit drums like in a band or anything like that? Or
Yeah. Yeah, a bit. I was in a band called XXY Lemon that was a pretty brief kind of like Girl, but a bit darker kind of band
okay.
with and with my ex-partner and my friend Jessie Karsten and my friend Faith Newton. And I played the drums in that band, and that was super fun. And it is something that I'm definitely interested in pursuing maybe down the line in another band. But I don't currently have a drum set. Moved into a place with my partner like 5 months ago, and we don't have a basement, so we had to
Oh,
leave the drum set at the
oh
old
no.
place. But it's it wasn't like a huge part of my creative process. Currently, I'm way more into the drones and the bleeps and bloops, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
singing
Totally.
is, yeah, just my most favorite thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so down the line for sure, I would love to. And I also play in a band called Half Shadow that my friend Jesse Karsten in Portland. Um, it's
That
his
name sounds
project.
familiar. I wonder
You've
if I know
probably
Jesse.
seen it around.
Okay.
Jesse is an old friend of mine, and they're just such a super sweet human. And we played at the Doug Fir recently,
Oh,
opening for
nice.
Carl Blau, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, it was a great
That's really
show.
cool.
And I did play a hand drum on stage and sing harmonies. And I'm also in another band called Sandy Pilos, which
Okay.
my friend Anna Diaz Sacco is the front person of that band, and played an electric drum pad kind of thing, like a
Mm-hmm.
Yamaha pad. We
Yeah,
did
yeah.
a YMO cover, um, and I'll
Do
have
I
to
know?
send it to you.
Okay.
It was my first time ever listening to that band, but it was super fun, and just being a part of the rhythm section in any band is great for me. And I love singing in other people's projects too, because it's nice like being in other bands, and there's like less pressure, because you're
Totally.
not.
Mm-hmm.
When I do Cave Cricket, it's like it's just me, everything is on me, which is great, but also like it's really fun to support my friends and like whose
Yeah.
music I love and back up their projects too.
The last band. So I was in bands all through high school and stuff. Actually, I don't know if you noticed, I've got a Roland V drum kit behind me. I I
Yes,
played
yeah, I see.
drums like starting in high school, and the music teacher at school, he hated me because I couldn't. I never even tried to learn how to read music, or so I had to play snare drum in the regular band in order to play the kit in pep band. But
Mm,
he, but we were at kind of like an impasse because it was such a small school. No, literally nobody else played drums. So I was all he had, and I could actually like keep time and stuff, but I was super into metal and punk, so I'd always like people liked it, even the people in the band, because I did it a little rougher, but he really hated that. And then same thing, I had to get rid of a drum set because I moved out of my
uh,
parents' house right out of like 2 day the weekend after I graduated high school. Couldn't bring it with me, so it sat in the garage and just got old. And then poor college student, sell it
mm,
20 years later, a year ago now. I got a drum
got
set,
the E
and
drums.
I'm getting my chops
Hell
back. I mean,
yeah.
it's cheesy because it's like an old brain. And the pads are so responsive. I've spent the last year just trying to find the miscellaneous, the toms from the jazz kit, and just like trying to construct something that is somewhat usable. and getting the triggers right so it sounds as natural as possible. And I think I may have got as far as
Yeah.
I can get on that, but it's better than nothing.
Nice.
So that was my really long drum rant. I'm curious,
Love a good
like,
drum rant.
so as I was listening to your album last night in preparation for this,
Mm,
and I actually sent it to my wife this morning. I said, you should check this out because she had recently got into Caitlin Aurelia Smith's like really old stuff, like when it was a lot more ethereal and whatnot. And I was like, this kind of reminds me of the older stuff, the Caitlin Aurelia that you're really into, and also my stuff, like it. And there, it sounds like there is a. I don't know if you have ever heard of Mount Erie or the
yeah.
microphones. I feel
Yeah,
like there's a
totally.
real Mount Erie vibe to the whole
Mm,
thing, which is something that I've been after. It just feels very Northwest and like broody and dark, but beautiful at the same time. So it's not like
mm.
it's not dark and like a for me, it's not something that's gonna bum me out. It's more of like going into fall, as it's
Yeah.
starting to get like it feels like a good
Introspection.
fall. Yeah, yeah. And you're
Oh,
set
I
too.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Um,
that. I've actually never had anyone say Mount Erie before, but I'm a big fan, and
oh nice.
I've seen Phil play a bunch of times
Yeah.
um, in New York and also in Portland, and the album that he made after his wife passed
Mm-hmm.
um, from cancer really
Acrylic with me.
resonated with me because I
Yeah.
lost my dad to cancer, and I remember I went to see the show that he was touring that album around, and it was the most um, emotional I've ever seen people be at like a live performance.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Yeah.
was at Revolution Hall, and just yeah, he's an amazing artist, and just the diversity of his catalog is
Yeah.
incredible, and totally a big inspiration.
I think that if I were to like select an album of Mount Erie that kind of like you give me the vibe of, I would say Ocean Roar, which is my favorite
Mm,
of the Mount Erie albums.
great
But
one.
I also saw him play that to the he did the opening show in his hometown Anacortes.
Oh yeah.
Um and so my wife and I went up, but we got our dates. Like we had a crossover in dates, and we had her nephews, well, our nephews now, and they were like, I don't know, 12 and 15 or something, and they like listened to like new metal and shit. And we're like, well, we're going to a concert and it's gonna be weird. And I think they had fun, but it was it was just in this tiny hall up in Anacortes, Washington, which is like a beautiful little town up on the it's like a little island on the
Yeah, I
sound.
was
And
there once. Oh, it's beautiful.
it's gorgeous, yeah. And my wife's mother passed away from cancer a year before we met, so yeah, it's a little heavy for her. I mean that
Yeah,
album, I bought it on vinyl, and then I was like, when am I ever gonna really like think like I want to listen to the Dead Wife album, like uh
totally. Yeah,
um but I really love what he did with that, just by it's just almost like automatic writing, or like just stream of consciousness. There's no hooks. It's like this is not
yeah.
it was a really really interesting experiment for sure.
Kind of anti-folk a bit.
Yeah, right, yeah, totally.
Yeah,
And as sad and devastating as it is, it's also like absolutely gorgeous, because it's
for
not a
sure.
hall.
Yeah.
That's something my wife and I have talked about a lot because of her mother's passing of cancer, is just how tucked away and hidden we keep death in our culture, especially in American
Mm,
culture. Just so, if you make jokes about it or talk about it in any, it's like, oh no, don't talk about that. And it's
yeah.
just kind of
People get
like,
uncomfortable. They
yeah, and it's
don't,
like,
unless they've experienced it, they don't know how to engage with it. And it
mm-hmm,
can be very
mm-hmm,
isolating.
definitely, yeah, yeah. And it's, I kind of like to take the old go to the places that scare you approach, like,
Yeah.
uh, like, why does it scare me? Well, because you're going to die someday. And if you spend your whole life trying to avoid that thought, well, when it comes time, that might be a pretty rough time. I
Yeah.
don't know. But now we're getting into the Buddhist weeds here. But
Totes.
so when does I guess let's a two-pronged question here, like
Mm,
electronic or experimental type music and then the leap into modular, like where is this on the
yeah.
timeline, and geographically, is that happening in New York or after you come here? Why did you come
Yeah,
to
totally.
Portland?
Well, I will say, like, for the first probably 4 or 5 years of having cave cricket, I was all acoustic
Oh,
instruments. Like, I played a six-string tenor ukulele, and I got into drones because I had a Shruti box, which
I'm not familiar with that.
yeah, it's an Indian drone instrument that looks almost a little bit like a briefcase, and it has these levers on the front
Uh-huh.
that you open, and then it has bellows, so you pump it. It's like a
What?
harmonium kind of, but it's different. Um, and yeah,
I'm
you gotta
looking. I
look it
have to
up.
look it up
Yeah.
because Shruti box.
Shruti box,
With
yeah, Shruti.
oh wow, that
And
looks crazy. I want
they
one now.
are amazing. Yeah, you should get one. I got into that because I went and saw, I don't know if you've heard of Dan Higgs of the band like Lungfish or the Pupils. I'm
I've
sure
heard
he's
of
been in
I've
other
heard of
projects.
but yeah, I'm not familiar.
Yeah. So when I was 20, I saw him play, and he had a Shruti box, and he played this set that just it like cast this spell over the whole room, everyone in this DIY venue just sitting silent, and it really inspired me. And I went home and I was like, how do I get one of those? I'm on the internet, figuring
Mm-hmm.
out. I got one shipped from like another country, and then I started writing songs just by having a very like intuitive kind of flowing practice of droning, singing over it, being in my journal, looking at what I wrote, the poetry, and that's a song, and then kind of going from there. And I think yeah, I was definitely um, really like, I didn't even really know about like effects pedals and things like that until much
Mm-hmm.
later. So, and yeah, I had like a floor tom that I would like hit and like sing over, and it was just very kind of like this primal, like raw
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
sound. And these are earlier albums that like aren't on, there's one, like my first album, Use Your Hands, I don't even think is on Bandcamp anymore because
Mm-hmm.
it's like precious to me, but I'm also like, it doesn't represent really Cave Cricket what it is now.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, so later on, I think probably after I moved to Portland, I started getting into effects. And after I met my partner, Tony, he is just a big enthusiast over effects pedals. And so he was letting me borrow some. He let me borrow a Boss RC 50, I think, the big loop
Yeah.
one.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then I started writing songs that way and started putting reverb on my vocals and delay, and yeah, just getting more and more into experimenting and improv. And during like the start of the pandemic, I was like, I'm gonna have a daily practice of just sitting down and in front of all my
Mm-hmm.
toys, and
Yeah.
seeing what comes out, recording it, and then those recordings eventually would be composed into different songs. So yeah, I'm
Is that the March
hugely,
May 2020
yeah,
album? I
yeah,
just
yeah.
got that this morning and I
Oh,
love the
nice. Thank
description.
you.
It said something about cozy up and listen in your backyard or your favorite place or something. So I went in the backyard with my coffee and listened to it there. I was like, perfect. Yeah, this is really great.
Rad. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to see if that's what
No,
you were
no.
referring to.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. Um, yeah, and I didn't get into modular until I started working at 4MS company, and
Oh, wow.
I've been there for I guess almost 2.5 years,
Okay.
and definitely still consider myself kind of a beginner.
Me
I have
too.
some gear, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm always wanting to learn more. I've bought a bunch of 4MS modules, and sometimes we trade with other companies, and
hmm
that's really rad. And yeah, this last show, the modular on the spot, was my first show performing with some modular in my setup,
Really?
and yeah,
Oh,
which
wow.
is
I
kind of
That's amazing.
crazy.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. That was
And
my first modular on the spot ever. So,
oh, nice, yeah.
yeah.
So now I'm like, hell yeah, this really, I feel like, has sparked something in me. And,
hmm
um, I definitely had played around a lot with the gear, the modular gear that I have, and kind of just more in like a meditative state of,
hmm
just experimenting and trying out patches and zoning out, in my studio. And, but now I'm like really excited about um, sampling and using
Yeah. I saw
that
you had the
as
STS.
composing. Yeah,
hmm
yeah. So playing, like, I was playing tracks off my record, The World, and singing over them, like kind of karaokeing my own songs. And
Yep.
um, yeah, and
I did my
just
last
have,
like weird metal chunky thing that I'm still trying to figure out. I told my friend when we were driving back, I was like, yeah, but it's just like guitar karaoke. Like that's not like where I'm headed. It's just kind of was a fun thing that I could do quickly.
yeah, you played a great set. It was cool. You had a lot of like
Thanks.
diverse sounds going on.
That's
And I
some,
love
I
like the guitar.
Yeah, thank you. And that I think that was what drew me to yours too. There were a few things, the fact that, I mean, anytime an omnichord is sitting around, I'm always like, okay, what's going to happen with that? And then you have
Hell
the rain
yeah.
stick. And then I really liked that vocal. You didn't do vocals. I don't remember how long it was, but I would say at least like 5 minutes until maybe more until you started doing vocals.
Mm,
And I thought that was like a really, really awesome artistic choice to kind
mm,
of like let that, because I feel like vocals with modular, that's like always, like, ooh, that's a treat because it doesn't happen a whole lot from the shows I've
yeah.
been to. And to not just like come out swinging with that, but kind of like ease into it and then be like, oh, there's vocals too. Like I just thought that was like had a nice flow to it and everything. It's very cool.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I think as an artist, I try to create diverse sounds, and
hmm
I'm always thinking of ways to, yeah, expand on that.
hmm
And yeah, I think modular is a great way to create really lush, epic sounds and
hmm
collage them over each other. And yeah, there's just so much there to explore.
hmm
And if you have the budget for it,
Yeah.
you can really go nuts.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think once I got, I think it's the Listen Up
Mhm.
module from 4MS and a Listen IO, allowing me to have quarter-inch inputs. That was a game changer because then you get the contact mic going. You can put that on anything, and
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, and you can put your guitar into it, your omnichord, you can put your vocals into it, and yeah, it's really fun to see what happens when you get that going.
Yeah. Yeah, the percussion interface and expander have been really awesome for me, bringing outside instruments or even, a shotgun microphone or something, to get envelopes off of, like, I had a real, and I'm not done with
Yeah.
this phase, but a real like field recording, but using my modular, like battery powered modular rig as a field recorder processor and just like
Nice.
not making music, but just like processing sound. And I'm still working on it because unfortunately, with field recording and stuff, you get a buildup of a lot of white noise and it just gets very like swirly and swashy. And I'm like, I think this could be
Yeah.
more interesting. So um, I want to talk about the record before we're done, but before we get into that, what do you do for 4MS exactly? Like, you kind of,
Yeah.
it sounds like everybody there kind of does a little bit of everything.
Uh, yeah, to an extent. I was hired to do shipping,
Okay.
so I'm shipping all the orders. We have a lot of dealers around the world, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes really big shipments. And also people order, small things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing all the shipping, and I'm also helping with social media. So I'm, answering questions and um, reposting things on the stories and trying
Nice.
to
Okay.
keep on top of all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, occasionally I will be, making screw bags or, just kind of anything that needs to be done, bagging little
Mm-hmm.
cables, assembling pods. Yeah, it's a really great place to work, and I'm super just grateful to be there. And it's such
Yeah.
a nice work environment.
I can't even, I mean, just becoming, buds with, a handful of people there and then
Yeah.
working with 4MS with the show. It's been just so positive, and yeah, everybody is like just sweethearts, and
Hmm.
like I love Thomas so much.
Yeah.
And also speaking of people that work there, Dan playing with us at Mott's, that was really cool. And his set was
Yeah.
amazing. So
Yeah, it
yeah,
was awesome.
I'm so happy to hear that you enjoy that, and it's a good way to make it slightly more affordable, or
Yeah. Oh, it's much more affordable.
yeah,
They offer a very generous employee discount, which is
that's so cool.
so nice. And yeah, it's just so lovely to be excited to go to work.
Yeah, yeah, it's a new feeling.
Yeah, yeah. Before that, I was doing childcare and just really getting super burnt out, hanging out with toddlers and
Well,
just
you
being
have to
like,
be like peak patience all the time, and that's got to be exhausting.
yeah, yeah. I had done childcare for over 10 years,
Oh
and
wow.
I recently I was still kind of keeping a job going, doing some after school care, but it recently ended, and I'm also like, this is a good thing,
Yep. Yeah.
because now I have more time for my small business, Fiber Being Designs, and yeah, working on music, and just accepting that like if I put more energy into those things, that the good will come back at me, and so far it's
Definitely.
working out.
That's so great. That's so great. Congratulations. So as far as the world goes, I don't have like a whole lot of questions, but I
Hmm.
do want to say that the world part one, that track is fucking so good. The way it builds, like it's because like I think it's track four, so you're kind of in this ethereal, cloudy, soft, airy. There's dissonance and there's abrasion, but it's mostly kind of, you're in a almost an ambient world, and then when that percussive stuff comes in and it kind of gets heavy, I was just like that. Like I got excited. I was like, this is what I love when people like can kind of take a right, like a total right hand or a hairpin turn on something and bring me something I wasn't expecting. And it made me think of what I mentioned earlier with you kind of bringing the vocals in later, the fact that you kind of brought that element in, and it's almost kind of like gives the album a bit of a, like a trajectory. I just thought that was really good, really masterfully done, um, the track itself and the placement and everything. So that's all I
Thank you.
really
Yeah.
that's all I got as far as that. But I do want to. I am curious about the process. What does the album mean to you? All of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that about that track. I think that's probably the first time I've done that in a song, and
Hmm.
that song took me the longest to mix, and I just
Yeah.
like was like, oh, this is hard, but yeah, I I started yeah, like I mentioned earlier, just having these daily improvisational recording sessions and just really zoning out and experimenting, and that's really what started the world being born. And after I put out the March through May album, I was like, writing a lot and um, writing, journaling, writing, and just thinking about all the different emotions that I had been experiencing. 2020 was such like crazy time in the
Hmm.
world. And so that was really, I really wanted to make an album that could capture all of my different emotions of experiencing grief and being deeply in love and um, yeah, just being a witch, and being aware of how capitalism affects us all, And so these are kind of like the main themes that are running through the album.
That was
And
like my real awakening. Like, I mean, I've always known, but I feel like that's when I really wrapped my head, or like when my view on our whole capitalistic and and I don't have to get too political, but like with the George Floyd everything, like I feel like I've always been very left, but I feel like I realized that I was American left of center, but here it's viewed as very left. But kind of
yeah,
you realize things and get perspective changes that like you can't really look back from. Like you can't unsee it and unbelieve it. So yeah,
oh,
I know
absolutely.
I relate to that a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I think, we're all a part of this late stage capitalism system, and with climate change ramping up um, the past couple of years, I feel like it creates a lot of despair and a lot of emotions that, need to be processed and channeled. And
Hmm.
everyone I know is in therapy, and we're all
I think everyone knows should be in therapy.
but yeah, I was really um when I was writing and composing the album, basically my process was going back into these recordings that I had made, picking out the gems and finding places that in all of these improvisations that I wanted to put on the album, and then kind of composing that way. And I feel like the album does really go back to my roots as like just a drone folk artist, starting with a drone, adding layers on top of it, and just building. And
Hmm.
the vocals on the album uh, mainly come, like, I feel like the power behind the vocals come from the TC Helicon voice live touch, or is it
Okay.
voice touch live? I can't remember. But yeah, that piece of equipment was like so crucial when I started playing with that. And my partner Tony really inspired me because he had been singing through those for years. And
Hmm.
there's a harmony function, and you can assign it a key and a scale. And it's just like then you have four different voices going at once, and it just creates this huge sound.
Yeah,
So that was really inspiring to me to be able to have that.
that's so cool. Yeah. There was something else that I just thought of. Let's see. Vocal. So something that I really like about the album, and I think what like, drew me into your set is with modular music, drone music, experimental music. I'm trying to find a way without to not be sound disparaging, because I'm not trying to be disparaging, but drone, it's called drone for one. So some of it can get a little boring,
Mm,
and or can be. I feel like there's a subtle art to making like minimalist or ambient or drone. There's a subtle art of keeping it engaging for the amount of time that the album or the piece is. But the people who are good at it like make some of my favorite music. And so
mm,
I feel like you have a really, really good, you have a very, very adept skill. Sorry, I'm not wording right now. But you seem very adept at of doing just that, keeping it interesting and keeping it moving, but still making it feel like you're in a space. Like you set
mm,
a mood, or set a vibe or a tone for a thing, and you I think it's really hard to occupy that space that you've created without it getting repetitive or monotonous, or a little like, okay, is this done? Like, I feel like a lot of modular sets, and this is all my own baggage and stuff, but like, I think sometimes they're a little long, even if they're a short set, it's kind of
yeah.
like, okay. And I've done that. And a lot of my modular music that I've recorded, I'm like, okay, 14 minutes, Tim. Really? Nah, I don't think this were, Uh, so I don't, this is also not a question. And I'm just putting you on the spot by like saying you're awesome. And that is hard to bounce back from when you're being interviewed. But I guess, do you have any insight for people listening out there? Or do you have any like skills or approaches that you use to do what I just
Yeah,
described?
totally. Well, first of all, thank you for the compliments. Really appreciate it. And I think I definitely think about that a lot. Um, and I feel like keeping things short is a great way to kind of hone in on that. Um, and yeah, having different transitions in songs. The song is going to be ethereal and drony, and then, there will be some kind of other element that comes in. Using looping, I feel like, is a great way to add interest in a song. I use a lot of looping. Sometimes I'll just have, there'll be a drone, there will be, some kind of looping vocals happening in the beginning, and then maybe it'll fade out and then fade it back in, but then maybe pitch it down.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of experimenting with that as an element. And yeah, I feel like I've learned a lot from other artists, that I've been inspired by. Like my partner, Tony, he and I actually also have a project called The Enchanted, which he wrote all these songs, and we made this album and made a tape and like played some shows around Portland with it. And the songs were short. They were 2 minutes, 3 minutes
Mm-hmm.
long, and just you create this space, you live inside of it, and then it's gone. And I feel like it really leaves people, you leave them wanting more. There's
That's so
something about
funny.
that.
There, no. So my friend, my close friend group, um, we do, we like to do, like sleepovers at my friend Steven and Jenny. They have this place like, uh, with two grand pianos and a, beautiful yard. It's got space and it's just a beauty. I call it the drug spa. It's just like if you want to like have a fun night with all your friends and like, talk to the stars, if you know what I mean, like it's a good place to
Hmm.
do it. And so I made this album called Music to Come Down To, because at the end of the night we'd all want to lay down and listen to something really calm and like that'll ease you in. And so I just thought that was kind of a cheeky title. And I think the longest song on that is like 4 minutes, but that's like the outlier. And my my friend Steven and my wife both still listen to it, and they always say you have to make your songs longer. But I I think that maybe the reason they still listen to it 2 or 3 years later, like kind of regularly, is because it's not, because if those things went on and on and on, I'm not sure that they would have listened to the whole album and know the different songs. So I
Yeah,
think, yeah, I think there's something there.
yeah, I hear that. Yeah, it's really I mean, it can get kind of monotonous for sure if something is going on too long. And I feel like embracing as well, like just playing a shorter set sometimes
Mm-hmm.
really, especially just being conscious of like, oh, there's four bands that need to perform here tonight, and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
play a
Mm-hmm.
20-minute set, and
Mm-hmm.
that also can keep it more interesting for yourself, because then you're like, okay, I really have to pare down what I
Yes.
what I'm gonna do, and think about, okay, have I played that song in a while? No, all right, let's do that one, and kind of mix it up. And yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
that's like another thing. And I mean, especially because a lot of the shows that I play are, house shows or DIY spaces and things. So
So when
yeah.
you're in your mixing process and you're making something that is particularly drony, is there anything that you specifically kind of, I don't know if like listen for, or like do you just listen to it over and over again and then kind of like do a vibe check and be like, okay, like 9 times out of 10, I'm thinking like this part's got to go, or this parts, this is where this needs to fade out and this comes in, or like, do you have, or is it more, is it less, is it more nebulous than that?
Yeah, I think it can be guided by the lyrics as well.
Oh,
I
right. Yeah. I
mean,
didn't even thought of
yeah,
that.
for the world, like I mean, I used to compose a lot by just having the words first and then creating a drone, but I feel like for the world I kind of was doing it the opposite way, like,
When you had
finding
words
these.
first, did you have a melody and then have to write to the melody, or you just had the words first?
I just have like some poetry,
Okay.
I would do a lot of, journaling and writing and then just, create a drone, be singing over it, recording what I'm doing and then kind of referencing it back
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, just kind of very like organically coming up with a melody. But yeah, for the world it was more about like yeah, being like, on the computer, doing really like active listening to things that I had recorded, and then finding the places that wanted to become songs, collaging it together, and then
Man,
thinking about,
you and I have
okay,
such
what am I
similar
trying to
approaches.
say?
That's so funny.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, I really I should listen to I'm gonna go on your Bandcamp or whatever you have and check out some more of your work. Yeah, and I think that I'm interested in seeing where it goes now that I'm more into modular, because I feel like it's like the last song of the module and the spot set that I did. That one was just like I had been I made some samples and I was like, let me see how glitchy or distorted or weird I could make these, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of going more into that, like making ugly sounds,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
making things that, yeah, just I'm always trying to think about how can I expand um, my range? How can I, yeah, do something different?
I think exactly what you just said, because I do a little like with the with what my pieces that I did at Mott's, like one of them was like a sequence I threw together really quick, and then just a quick drum beat that I could like fuck up with the SCM by turning the rotate knob or whatever. And then
Yeah.
one was like, okay, I set up the chord progression sequence on the Swan to play on the no control, but I don't have a melody that I know I can just like play any one of these buttons and it's going to sound cool. And then the last thing was like the guitar track that I like have rehearsed. But I feel like I always like to provide myself a space to explore and improvise during a live set. I never get a
Mm.
live set that I like know exactly what's going to happen. And something that I just kind of like realized and like, or maybe not realized then, but something that playing this show last weekend really um, woke up in me was how much that process and then listening back to it can inform the writing process,
Oh,
and how
yeah.
valuable it is for that. So that's really cool to hear that you also are just like, well, I'm gonna bring this piece and I'm just gonna see what happens. And sometimes magic happens, and sometimes it's like, "Ugh," but it's either
Absolutely.
way you learn, right?
Yeah, and when you're working with all kinds of gear, like something, can go awry, and I've been performing for long enough now that I'm just accept it, roll with it, move on, or
Hmm.
like at Mott's, my omnicord went out of tune.
Oh no,
And
didn't even notice.
cool. That was my hope that no one would notice. My partner noticed because he is the
Hmm.
omnicord guy, and he and I just sang one line of a song, and then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna move on, but
Hmm.
anything can happen, when you're when
Hmm.
you're
Yep,
have
that's
all of these effects and things. So
honestly, that's one of the reasons that I've brought guitar into it, because that's relatively new for me playing live anyways. I've always
mm,
dabbled with bringing it in, but guitar is a safety net for me because I've been playing since I was 12. And
Yeah.
if everything fails, I can at least play 10 minutes of guitar that people who like 10-minute guitar pieces may enjoy. But that gives me like it's a
Yeah,
blanket, it's a baby blanket or whatever they call us, like a binky.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's good to have your comfort items, and yeah, the Shruti box will always be a
Oh,
comfort
yay.
item for me. And I
I
have
want
two
one so
now.
bad. Oh, nice. It
Yeah,
looks like they're relatively affordable too,
yeah, they
as
are.
far as instruments go.
Yeah, for sure. I think like it varies, how the quality varies,
Right.
depending on where you get it from, and they have different tunings, which is really cool.
Nice.
I have one that is a 3 octave, um, and that one is very fun to play with because you have just a lot more range of
Yeah.
notes. And
Uh-huh.
but I'm always trying to figure out how can I make a drone, with anything that I have. Like a lot of the drones, on like March through May, that album came from a Casio keyboard, like the bass
Oh,
notes of
nice.
the keyboard,
Uh-huh.
and just having this like heavy object sitting on a note. I have this very
I've done
special,
that too.
I have this special, it's like my friend Craig Usher made me this stone that he's like a metal artist.
Hmm.
He like cast this iron stone, and I just keep it by my Casio keyboard. And
That's
whenever
so
I want to like
funny.
want
I
to have a
love
drone,
that.
I'm like, all right, put it on the D, and then run it through all kinds of
Uh-huh.
effects, and and yeah, really fuck it up.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so that's one way that I really really enjoy. And yeah, the Omnicord, I have a modded Omnicord, so it has the touch plates on it, and yeah, just drone away. Love me some drones.
Do you
Nice.
know have you played with one of these?
I can't. It's a little
It's the
blurry. Oh, it's a
CP
Yamaha.
Reface.
No,
So
I don't
this
think
is
I
like
have.
it's got like the Wurlitzer and the two Rhodes voices, and it's got like these three banks of effects. It looks like a toy, but it is a serious instrument, and it is one of my like favorite. It can be battery powered. It has external speakers. There's MIDI
Nice.
in and out, um, and yeah. So like that, this is something I bring camping if I just want to like tootle around. But I'm thinking this is something I'm going to bring into my live rig as well because I really like to
Yeah.
because and I'm sure you feel this. I feel like you've alluded to it. I'm not that entertained to perform live if I'm just twiddling knobs.
Yeah.
Like it's not that for me. That's not because I'm used to playing drums or guitar or singing or
Yeah.
something in a band, and I want something to
Totally.
do. So
Yes, it's good to have like anything that can keep it more interesting for yourself. This is not music related, but I started bringing in like dance elements. I didn't do this at Mott's, but
mhm.
um, I started getting really into. I would like play an instrumental track and then bring silk fans, and just
Oh, cool.
suddenly I'm dancing,
Uh
and
huh.
adding that into the element of performance. And
I love that.
yeah, so that's like another way for me where I feel like I can be adding another element of visual effect or expression. And
Hmm.
um, it's also just cathartic to move around.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. I like that a lot. Well, we are over an hour, and
ah,
I don't want to
yes.
take up too much of your time, but this has flown by. I feel like there's a million other things. I've been trying really hard to do what a good host is supposed to do and not keep interjecting with like, oh well, God, we should talk about this. I feel like I want to nerd out with you next time we see each other. But I always
Yeah,
like to give
totally.
people the last word on the show. So is there anything you would like to
Oh,
scream from the modular mountaintops or anything we haven't covered that
ah.
you were hoping to share?
Well, I feel really inspired by this conversation and
Oh, great. Me too.
inspired by playing at Mott's, and I'm excited to get back in the studio and start working on, as we descend into the dark months,
Yep.
start working on
Yep.
the next thing, and really just go deep into creative process now that summer is over. And yeah,
Hmm.
I feel like this is a great segue for me to start thinking about what is next. And
Well,
yeah, I
we'll
appreciate
have
you
to
having me
talk
on.
next year about whatever comes out of this, and then I can play this part of this episode as like a teaser opener for the second for your return.
Yeah, totally. That sounds good.
Well, is there I'll put all the links in the show description, but if there's anything you would like to direct people to as well while you have their
Yeah,
ear, go ahead and plug whatever.
for sure. Yeah, so Cave Cricket, there's a band camp for Cave Cricket, and there are a few albums on there, including The World, which came out in 2022, and that's also on Spotify, so you can stream on there. I'm not going to put any other albums on there because I don't want to give them any more of my money,
Yeah.
other than for that one. But and I also have a small business called Fiber Being Designs. There's an Etsy shop, and I make fiber art, jewelry, plant hangers, and that is, a big way that I support myself.
All right, that's our show. Thank you so much to all of the sponsors. Links in the show description. Thank you to Kira for coming on the show and for making lovely music. Links to not only her music, but her Etsy shop as well in the show description. Don't forget to head over to patreon.com/podularmodcast or podularmodcast.com if you would like to learn how you can help to keep the LEDs blinking over here at Podular Modcast. This week's secret word is pod mod pom pom. Until next week.